Well, hello friends and family. Gonna send out some pictures of the wilderness today. This is a repeat of a hike that I did last week. I realized I didn't have any decent pictures of the scenery, so today I'm gonna try to let you see some of the stuff that's up here in the Idlewild area, specifically in the San Jacinto mountain area. So it's June 2nd and it's around 6. I'm just starting out, so when I get to some decent scenery, I'll take some pictures and footage and show them to you. See you soon. One of the neat things about the first part of this hike is when you first start out, you get to see the Tahquitz Peak, and you're kind of walking right below it. It's pretty awesome chunk of rock. People climb straight up that face. It's just about a 2-hour drive from Oceanside to the trailhead by the time you go through the 30 stoplights and hem it and go get a pass at the ranger station. Passes are free and they're out there all night long pretty much, so you can show up really early and get one. And it's just kind of like a self-register system. They definitely want you to have one because they want to keep track of how many people are on the trail, and they also only put out a limited number so that the trail kind of has a quota, but I've never seen the box empty unless you show up real late in the afternoon. Then they probably would all be gone. Now, the Pacific Crest Trail actually cuts right along that ridge there. It runs along out on that ridge and it kind of cuts around the mountain and heads north, which is the direction we're looking. And Suicider's Rock is right there. So we're just going to walk to the right of those things because we're going to be up in that area up in there over the top. This is a kind of a neat part of the trail. I call it Halloween because it's all overgrown with these little oaks in here. It's real kind of spooky. It's only halfway up the first trail, but it's kind of interesting to walk through the pine trees and then come into a grove of oak trees that are growing in all these rocks here. Well, we're about 3/4 of the way up the Devil's Slide Trail, and on the way you can get a pretty good view of the valley down there. I don't know if the reservoir is visible, but you can just see Diamond Valley Reservoir, and you can get a pretty good view of Suicide Rock down there. We're kind of just above it a little bit right now, but there's it. Or there it is. There's a pretty good stretch through here where you can kind of look off to your left and get some pretty good views before the trail kind of heads back into the pines before the last little bit of the trail goes over the up to the intersection at Sal Junction. Right through here you get a chance to see where the PCT kind of runs across the side of that hill over there. You can't see the trail from here, but that's just where it is. We'll go up the PCT a ways, but we won't be on that part because it's kind of connected to a bunch of other trails up there. And so anyway, when we get up there, I'll explain it. This is Sal Junction, and this is the top of the Devil's Slide Trail. And several trails come together right here. We're actually on the PCT to the right and left, and then straight ahead goes down to Cabbage, Skunk Cabbage Meadow. And we'll be coming back that way today. And then over this way, you have Talkeets Valley, and then if you can see over here the trail, this is the Pacific Crest Trail to the south, and that'll take you over to the Watchtower and Talkeets Peak, that big rock that was in the earlier video that we were way below when we first started out. And then we're going to turn this way and go north on the PCT, and you got some park signs and so on and so forth. But anyways, this will take us up toward Mount San Jacinto. We're going to go about halfway, and then we're going to make a right turn and go out toward the desert and check out a little lake that's out there. This is an interesting section of the PCT right here. There's some enormous trees that have fallen in this area, and the ranger tells me, since this is national forest, that they don't use any chainsaws or power tools to clear the trail. They have to come up here with bow saws, and they carry them by hand. They don't bring mules. But some of these things are massive. And this thing here, I don't know if you can get the scope of the thing in the picture, but it's about probably 6 or 8 feet in diameter. And wouldn't want that to fall on me walking down the trail. They'll eventually cut it up and pull it off out of the way. But that's a big one there. Probably made a pretty good noise when it hit the deck. All right, we're coming up the Pacific Crest Trail on the west side of the mountain right now, and we're coming into some really good view spots. From this point you can see the Talkeets Rock and Talkeets Peak that we're parked below down at the Humber Park camping area, or parking area, I guess. But down on the right there, that's the actual rock that you see from the car that you look kind of straight up at. So the car's down in that area down there, and then there goes the pole. And then you can see from this vantage point that the actual Talkeets Peak is much higher than the rock you see, because you're kind of looking at an angle straight up that ridge, so everything looks like the same elevation. Right on that peak is the Watchtower, and there's a trail that goes right to it, and they let you come in there and walk around and take the views, and you can see forever from that Watchtower. Some of the PCT hikers will camp out in the little tiny clearing that's at the base of the thing, but that's a pretty good hike for a day hike too, because it's not too far. And I think that probably the elevation's, I haven't checked the Garmin, it's probably 8,500 or 9,000, something like that. So we're just about even with it right now, and we're still going to go up from here. Alright, so we're just kind of doing some switchbacks right now to get up to a place where the PCT will actually go off to the left and go around the west side of the mountain. And then we're going to stay on the east side of the mountain and go up over what's called the Wellman Divide towards San Jacinto. So there's the valley. Really good view of the reservoir from here. There it is, Diamond Valley Reservoir. So off in the distance, you can see through the haze, the far ridge is Palomar. In fact, you can see the observatory from here, the little white speck over there. I don't know if it's going to show up on here, but I can see it with my eyes. And then there's Talkeet's Peak again with the fire Watchtower and the big rock right behind that tree. Trail's pretty wide right here because everybody stops here to get the view. Right now we're on the Pacific Crest Trail, the very last bit that I'll be hiking, where it'll turn left and go out around the west side of the mountain. And a lot of the PCT hikers will go straight here. They'll go up over San Jacinto and back down. And good morning. Good morning. And they'll do San Jacinto and then down the other side and pick the trail back up. So there's the PCT on that side. And this is the trail on to Wellman Divide. We're going out of the National Forest into the state area right now. Different rules. We're heading off to the Wellman Divide, which is a ridge that you kind of have to cross before you get over to the main Mount San Jacinto. And on the way there's a spring I'll show you. It's kind of neat. It's the top end of a creek that we'll cross later on when we're on the bottom side of the loop. That's the Jean and Marion Mountain area up in there. And that actually is the kind of the top end of the Wellman Divide that we're going to go over. And then we're going to be on the other side of that ridge where we'll walk kind of in a big right-hand loop. Provided the feet don't give out or the knees don't give out or all the above. The head doesn't start to pound. Here's a nice view of the ridge that we're going to be going around. All right, we're coming up on the main cienega or marsh. It's called the Wellman Cienega, and there's a couple of them up here, but this particular part of the trail has this big one on it, and you can actually get water out of it. It's the top end of a stream that flows down through this canyon, and I think we're still not quite to it, but you can look down and see all the greenery that it produces on the ground. A lot of skunk cabbage and ferns in this area. In the Google, you can see them from space because when the ferns and the skunk cabbage die in the summer, it leaves these great big brown patches, and they're quite visible on the mountain. Doing a little bit of the steep part of the trail that leads up to the Wellman Cienega, and we busted out of the trees here for a while, so we can really get some good views. There's the Tuckett's Peak back there, and we're getting pretty much above that now. There's red tuckweeds out back there, and then that little double hump back there is Toro Peak. That's a nice destination for another hike, and you can see down into the hot desert. And there's the ridge, and we're going this way. So we're coming up on the main marsh area. You can see all the grass that's produced by the water that comes out of that thing. This is the spring itself coming out of the Wellman Cienega, kind of be the headwater, and you can see there's a little trickle coming out of this, and this is one of the two of them. There's another one right over here. So you can dig a little hole there and dip your bottle or collect it in your hat or whatever, but you can see that the spring is actually coming out of the ground all over the place. There's another one up there, another one right there, and the whole side of the mountain right here is just covered with green because the water's just oozing out of the hill. And then down below there, it's just coming out like crazy. So down below, it's got a fairly sized creek going because there's multiple sources for this water coming out of the side of the mountain. It's not just one little location. It's kind of neat here because you can actually see it flying out of the granite. And you see a lot of people stopped here in a summer afternoon filling up the water bottles. Okay, the next stop's going to be the actual divide. It's not too much further where the top of the Wellman Divide is, which is the top of this little ridge. And at that point, we'll make a right turn and go down towards that they call Desert View. And there's a little lake down there I want to take a look at. I just wanted to show you Palomar Observatory. It should be just right over the top of that little branch sticking up on the right there. Should see a little white speck. That's the observatory on Palomar Mountain. Then there's Tuckett's right there, where the fire watchtower is, and then that rock above the parking lot, it isn't visible from here. It's just down behind that ridge there. And then that peak right over there, we're going to go around that. We're about even with it now, but when we get to that point, we're going to already have descended, and we're just going to make a loop around. And then we're going to come back down through that valley down there. That's actually the loop back. Okay, we've reached the summit at the Wellman Divide where the trails branch off. We're bound to see some folks up here. Well, we're heading down now from Wellman Divide. Wellman Divide is just about 9,500 feet, and it's just about 5 miles in. So you turn around there, it's all downhill, and you have a 10-mile day. But no matter which way you go, I'm going to go down around the mountain, like I said, and it'll be pretty much downhill all the way, just a little bit further, because there's some things out on the other end of the mountain that I want to check out. So we'll fire this thing up when I get out there and show you a little bit of more of the desert and maybe a lake, and what the other end of the trail is like. This is the trail that a lot of hikers come up from when they do the tram. So from the tram to San Jacinto, they come up this way. I believe there's another trail through Round Valley, but this is, I think, what you'd consider the upper trail. But it's real pretty. It's very much like Sierra in the sequoias, because you're down in the pines almost the whole trail. It is the California side, so there's a lot of three-wheeler tracks, for crying out loud, and stuff like that that's not real natural, but the state is just different than the federal. All right. And I just realized I'm on trail, but I'm off track. I missed a turn up there in the valley that takes you on around the mountain. So I'm actually headed down to the tram right now. And I'm passing like 8,000 people coming up from the tram on this trail. But they're in groups. You go along like this, won't be anybody, and then there'll be like 50. Probably tram loads, I would guess. Anyways, I'm going to go on down to the tram, make a right turn. There's another trail that'll take me back up to where I want to be. Just past a hiker said that, well, I got about a half hour to the tram. The only downside of that is I'm going to give up a whole bunch of elevation to get down there, and I got to go right back up again to get over the other pass on the other end of this ridge. But that's okay. I've never been there before, and it's a good excuse for being late for dinner. Where the trails converge. I've been on that thing for a while. That's the Round Valley Trail. I sort of got on that by accident when I missed a turn, which is no big deal because I got to see something I didn't see before. And then I'm going to be kind of making a hard right back U-turn on that trail, which will take me up there. That's looking dead south. I want to be up on that ridge over there. And if you just keep going that way, the tram is like right around the corner, and you can just take the tram, get a motel, hooker, whatever. Okay. Coming up out of Round Valley by the tram on this loop trail, you have to kind of watch where you're going because there's so many big boulders that you have to look for these stacked rocks and logs or you'll lose the trail. I've actually lost it a couple times now because there's a bunch of false trails, so you end up going down some other goof's trail because he wasn't watching. Not that I always watch. And next thing you know, you're like, where's the trail? So, yeah, just gotta watch. There's not too many cairns on this trail at all, so it would be a real bugger in the snow. But it's not bad. Some parts like this, it's obvious you got rocks on both sides and pretty much one way to go. As I said earlier, I'm on this trail because it's a get me back to where I want to be trail. Because I've never been off trail today, but I've been off track. You see, men don't get lost. They just temporarily don't know which trail is going to take them to where they want to be or how to get to it. But no, I wasn't lost. I studied this area pretty closely, so I know where all these trails go. Just never been on them before. This is pretty nice in through here. This is the desert end of the mountain. And just kind of going around that ridge that is on the other end of the Wellman Divide. And off to my left is Palm Springs. Off to my right is the ridge. I'm going south, and we're going to be up at this little lake in a little bit, if there's any water in it. And I suppose, yeah, I got back all my elevation that I gave up to get down to the tram. There's probably a few more little climbs in here, but pretty much back to the elevation that will put us around the corner and onto the other side of the ridge, which is going to show us a whole other great big view. Well, here is the intersection that I would have approached from this trail here if I hadn't zagged when I should have zigged. I meant to stay right and I ended up going left down into the valley. So this is the signage for this spot. And that little lake is just on the other side of that outcropping. So they say. We're going to find out. And we're going to get there through that trail, which is going to take me back to the car. Well, there's some signs back there that say don't hike off the trail, but you have to hike off the trail to get to here. And this is what you can see. They've got some really improved barriers for this sensitive area. But that's the lake right there. I guess it's a puddle right now, but from the looks of the photographs, can get really pretty awesome looking. I haven't been able to find any pictures like this on the internet, so they're pretty keep this little lake pretty close to their chest. You can see that big pine on Google sticking out into the lake. We're going to see if we can carefully walk our way around the edge of this. There's supposed to be a fantastic view off the east end of this little valley, because it's literally right on the end of this mountain, and then it just goes straight off to the desert. Here's another placard. Guess maybe I'm up here just a little bit late. Either that or just wasn't enough water up here this year. But I'll bet a month ago that thing probably had a fair amount in it. It just probably leaks out. Now, this has really been improved. There's actually pavers laid down in here. They do not tell you about this area. Probably for obvious reasons. Not very big. This thing's only about 150 yards long. And we'll see if, I think this is where the desert view is going to be, so we'll find out here in a minute. Yeah, they've got this really nicely improved little raised berm. They definitely want you to stay on it, because this area is real sensitive, I guess. It looks just like the rest of the forest, but if you get a bunch of people running amok in here, pretty soon it won't. Oh, we got company. This is the view. Hello, hello. Hi. Wasn't sure if I was supposed to be over here. I'm still not sure.
Still not sure either, but we're not sure. But at least you're not alone.
Holy cow. Now that's a view. Well, that just pretty much goes straight off, doesn't it?
Yeah. Watch that last step.
Oh man, that is like straight down.
Second here.
We just saw 3 deer.
The blue sky today. Really huge rock formations up there above the lake. Got a little fancy bridge and a weather station here set up. Okay, we've left the lake area, and there's a little pass on this end of the ridge, which is on the totally the other end of the mountain from the Wellman Divide. So we're kind of on the back side of the hike, but we've done most of the walking. So now we'll drop over on this side of the ridge into the Skunk, Cabbage, Meadow area, and come back to the Sal Junction where the PCT meets up with all those other trails coming up, coming past Devil's Slide that comes up from the park. You can see the valley starting to come into view, looking north, looking south towards Palomar and Laguna on this side of the hill. And that big one in the foreground is Talkeets and red Talkeets. Just on the other side of that is Lake Hemet, kind of down in there. So there's going to be some pretty nice views here at this little corner, because the trail takes a turn at this little switchback, and you can get a look around. So that lake is up over that ridge on the other side. So we're just gradually making a slow, big right-hand turn around the ridge coming back towards the parking lot. And we're heading west now. Unfortunately, this is the side of the mountain that got burned up. And so a lot of what used to be really nice timber is a bunch of sticks. And unlike an oak, those pines ain't coming back. So it'll be interesting to see how many 100 years it takes to, if ever, to get pine trees on this side of the hill. But I'm sure it's happened 1,000 times before. Just removes all your shade. Still walking down through the burn area. It takes about, I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes to get from the ridge over there back over into where the green trees are. In fact, you can see them right in front of us here. The burned area is kind of like out on the end of that ridge over where the lake is. So you kind of get over here and then you drop back into some real nice forest. And we're actually just about down to the elevation of that big intersection where Devil's Slide Trail meets the PCT. We're going to go a bit below that, kind of into a valley, and then kind of ramps back up to that little saddle again. But not a big deal. There's no steep hills or rocks or any of that stuff. It's really, really doable and friendly for just about any hiker. So I just passed a guy coming up this trail and I'm going down it. And he's a senior in we stopped and talked for a minute. And I think he must have been Kelly's brother, because he was looking for some folks that were behind him on the trail. And so I ran into them, and they said, yeah, he's with us. And I said, well, you're not letting him out hike you, are you? He says, not much choice in the matter, and the guy's over 80 years old, and he was putting it to him, and these people were like in their 40s, and they were looking like they could hike. So yeah, Kelly, I think that was your brother, your hiking brother. This is a pretty scenic part of the trail, because it gets you up and you can see where you've been and where you're going. You have the big peak over there off over my shoulder. That's the one that has the lake out on the end of it. You wouldn't think that you'd have a lake up on top of a peak, but it's up there. The peak is broader than it looks when you get up there. You kind of go around that thing. That's, as I said before, that's the end of the ridge that I'm walking along, or walking around, I should say. All right, well, we're almost back into what I would call the valley, the little skunk cabbage meadow. And you can see down below there, the valley floor is kind of coming up to meet the trail, because it's just the way the mountain tapers off, but it's all buckbrush down there. But there is a valley down in there that is off over in that area that you could probably camp in, but they don't want you to. But a little further down the trail here, we're going to cross a spring and get some agua fresca, because I'm almost out of water. And then we'll almost be back to the intersection of PCT and this trail and Devil Slide Trail. Stopping off here for a little water. We'll fill up we'll filter it, but got a really nice little spring. Actually, this is not a spring, it's a creek, but it flows out of that spring up on the higher part of the mountain, that Wellman Cienega marsh area. And I think there's one more we're going to cross. It's even got more water in it than this one. These are kind of a surprise to me. I didn't know there would be that much water on this side of the hill. There's quite a bit on the other side, which makes hiking over here kind of nice, because you're not going to run out of water. We'll find out this summer if these things run all the time, or if they get dried up in summer. There's another little creek crossing down here. Looking at the topo, I think this is the one that flows out of the Wellman Cienega. I think the other one flows from a different area. This one has quite a, well, it's probably about the same amount of water, I guess. Some pretty good little sized ponds down in there. You could take a bath in this thing if you were a jerk. But it's really, really flowing. This one here, I bet you, probably sees water year-round, judging by the landscape. Well, we just popped up over that little rise there from a sort of a long, slow uphill ramp to get into the valley here. So this is the Meadow area just before we hit that junction, Sal Junction, where the trail goes down the hill to the car. And this is one of my favorite places in here, because it is just awesome looking. A lot of big giant old trees, a lot of fernage. In the morning it's like spectacular when the sun's coming through the trees at an angle, and can't beat it. And this is like only about 3 miles from the car, so it's easy to get to, should you care to come see it. So right down here, is the farthest the trail went, or I should say it's the farthest you were allowed to go for several years after the burn. Because as you can see, you wouldn't want one of these things falling on you, because a lot of them just fell over and probably kill you dead. And every time the wind blows, they probably get a little more down. Well, they wanted to give it a few years for the wind and rain to go ahead and uproot and blow over some of this stuff. So they have a sign right down here, and that was where the chain was. So you could walk about that far, and then you just have to turn around and walk back. Little mud crossing there. Thing always seems to have a little water in it. We're coming up on Sal Junction, and this is where all the trails come together. Be a lot of hikers up here because it's people coming back from the fire lookout, people coming down from Jacinto, and people coming up for an afternoon hike, and me coming back from a loop. But that trail where those folks are standing is where we came up this morning, and then we made a hard left and went right up that way and went out, can't see it, around and came back up this little trail right here. Good loop. So you got the sign up there. That's our return trail. And that's where we long to be in about 2.5 miles. Everybody get a good hike in today?
We're not done yet.
Not done yet. No, not till you get to the car, right?
Car?
Alright, so this is the Devil's Slide Trail. We came up, and I'm gonna cruise down here and eat a Pop-Tart and gulp some water and then finish up the hike. Alright, so we've had some refreshments and we're heading down the Devil's Slide Trail. There's some neat stuff here. So many neat things to see you couldn't possibly photograph it all, but I'll try to get a few more into this video. There's the mountain that the PCT cuts around up there. Just down to this first stretch, at the end of a switchback, there's like a picture rock that you can actually, well, it looks like a picture frame or something. It's the obligatory take my picture in the square rock opening, but it's kind of interesting if you've never seen it. It's right there. It's just a piece of granite leaning against another piece of granite, but it's pretty cool. All right, down the trail we go. I call this part of the trail Rock Garden because it's a little picky. Maybe I can film some of it without falling on my nose. Just heading down the trail here. There's a good look at Saddle Junction. Right there. And then PCT kind of goes around the back of that ridge, and then it pops out kind of over there, and then it runs around the front of that ridge. Well, that's that big rock we were looking down on. Means the car is near. But it's odd, you know, it looks like it's the tallest thing there, but actually you're looking right to left up a ridge that's much taller than this rock. and you can see it in the other parts of the video. You can just see the peak that in the background there that the fire watchtower sits on. And it's a neat hike to that fire watchtower. Okay, next stop, the car. So I did make it back to the car, and hope you enjoyed getting to have a look around the Mount San Jacinto area. Really great place to hike. All right, thanks for watching.